Curtis "Red" Mulligan had logged nearly 20 years as a long-haul trucker, crisscrossing the interstates from Arizona to Maine. However, his new dispatch took him to a place he'd rarely visited, the swamplands of southern Louisiana. The job seemed straightforward. Transport crates of restaurant supplies from a distributor in Baton Rouge to a cluster of small eateries hidden in the bayou. The pay was generous, and the schedule was tight. Red, always up for a challenge, figured it would be just another delivery. He had no idea that the lonely backroads could pack so much tension. He set out in the early afternoon, wanting to reach the more remote parishes before sunset. The first segment down the major highway was uneventful, heavy traffic around Baton Rouge, then a steady thinning of cars until the world seemed dominated by cypress trees draped in Spanish moss. As the miles ticked by, Red noticed that the roads were getting narrower, the shoulders almost non-existent. Gnarled branches reached out over the asphalt, casting shifting shadows that made it tough to read the pavement. Around 5 p.m., the sky began to take on the warm gold of early evening. According to his GPS, he still had about 40 miles until he'd reach a local supply depot where he could check in and confirm the final route. Red cruised through a small town with a single blinking traffic light, garnering the stares of locals, who rarely saw a big 18-wheeler pass their doorsteps. He offered them a polite wave, but few waved back. People there seemed guarded, wary of outsiders. Pressing on, he switched off the air conditioner and cracked the window, letting the humid air rush in. The bayou smell, a mix of rich mud and decaying vegetation, hit him full force. He tried to focus on the route. County Road 14, turn left on Old Mill Lane, then another winding series of unmarked roads. He still had some daylight, but it was fading quickly. About 10 miles later, he spotted what looked like a narrow metal bridge spanning a mossy waterway. A rusted sign read, "Old Mill Lane, perfect." He eased onto the bridge, feeling the weight of his rig causing the structure to groan. Once across, the pavement dissolved into a worn patchwork of potholes. The thick canopy overhead blocked most of the remaining sunlight. Red turned on his headlights, which stabbed into a tunnel of trees and vines. He navigated carefully, mindful of oncoming traffic, though he'd seen none for at least a half hour. In the gloom, the cypress trunks on either side appeared to close in, as if nature were reclaiming the road. Red's GPS lagged, occasionally losing signal. He found himself relying on posted signs and mental breadcrumbs. After a hairpin bend, he noticed a battered pickup on the shoulder, hazard lights flickering. A middle-aged man stood beside it, waving a flashlight. Red considered the warnings he'd heard from other truckers. Stopping for strangers on back roads could be risky. But something about the man's frantic gestures convinced him. He pulled over, letting his trailer's hazard lights warn any oncoming motorists, if there were any at all. The man jogged up, sweat staining his shirt. "Thanks for stopping." "Friend, my truck's battery died and I can't get it jumped. No bars on my phone either. You heading toward a town?" "Eventually," Red said, eyeing the man's anxious face. "I'm delivering these crates out in the bayou. Nearest place with a phone might be that supply depot I'm heading to. Mind giving me a lift? I can ride in the cab with you. Name's Toby." Red hesitated. Toby's face held no obvious malice, just desperation. "All right," Red decided, "but only up to that depot." Toby hopped in, thanking him profusely. He explained he was a handyman who'd been checking on a broken water pump at an old property when his truck gave out. Red introduced himself, still cautious but trying to relax. They rolled forward, and Toby pointed out that the road ahead forked. "Left's shorter, but it's rough," Toby said. "Right'll take us around a big patch of swamp." Checking the time, Red opted for the shorter path. The forklift and crates in his trailer rattled over deep potholes. Every so often, Toby fiddled with his phone, still no service. Red tried the radio for a local station. Nothing but static. Darkness settled, turning the branches overhead into giant claws. The watery ditches alongside the road glistened with occasional flickers from frogs or alligators. Then, the trailer jolted violently. Red cursed and fought the wheel. He'd hit a pothole or snag. The rig lurched to the left, dangerously close, to sliding into the ditch. Red managed to correct the steering, heart hammering. He pulled to a stop to check for damage. Toby grabbed a flashlight from Red's glove compartment, and they hopped down, boots sinking into the spongy roadside. A quick inspection showed the trailer's rear axle was pinned against a piece of broken asphalt sticking up like a jagged tooth. The tire still held air, but getting the truck free looked tricky. "We might need to back up slowly or we'll tear that tire," Toby said. They spent the next 15 minutes maneuvering in the dark, Toby guiding Red with hand signals while Red inched the rig backward in low gear. Thankfully, the tire emerged unscathed. But in the gloom, Red spotted something else. Footprints in the mud leading away from the road, fresh enough to reflect the flashlight's beam. They weren't Toby's or Red's. They were large, like a man's boot heading into the swamp. For an instant, Red felt uneasy. This was no place for random midnight wanderers. As they climbed back into the cab, Toby exhaled, relieved. "Glad we didn't wreck. I'd be stuck out here for days," he joked nervously. Red forced a chuckle, though those footprints gnawed at him. They pressed on for another 20 minutes. The road twisted left, then right, then left again in a labyrinth of wetlands. Occasionally, Red caught a glimmer of water in the corner of his headlights, reminding him how easily a careless turn could dump his rig into the bayou. Toby's shoulders remained tense. He kept glancing at the side mirror. Without warning, a pair of headlights flared behind them, appearing out of nowhere. "Where'd that come from?" Toby muttered. The vehicle closed in fast, much faster than was safe on such a road. Red tapped his brake pedal to signal caution, but the headlights stayed right on his trailer's tail. Toby swiveled in his seat. "They're practically kissing the bumper. Could be someone local who hates out-of-town trucks." Red's gut clenched. Or worse. He gently accelerated, hoping to put distance between them. The unknown car matched his speed, refusing to pass. Now the beams flickered, like the driver was flashing them. Toby cracked the passenger window and tried signaling with his flashlight, but the trailing car responded with a jarring rev of its engine and lunged even closer. Red's mind raced. On these roads, a collision was a death wish. He slowed again, hoping the pursuer would overtake and be gone. Instead, they heard the crunch of gravel as the car swerved, then returned behind the trailer, still tailgating aggressively. Toby's voice shook. "This ain't normal. Maybe you should just pull over. Let them do whatever they want." But the shoulders were too narrow, water and mud on each side. Stopping could mean getting stuck or becoming a sitting duck. Red swallowed hard, focusing on keeping the rig steady. A glance at the fuel gauge told him he had enough to keep going. "We'll just keep moving until we reach that depot." After a tense few miles, the road opened slightly, and the trailing headlights disappeared as if the driver had cut them. Red peered at his mirror. Nothing but inky darkness. Toby shuddered. "They're gone? Or just with their lights off?" Horrifying thought. Red pressed the pedal, keen to get out of this swamp faster. His GPS still wasn't functioning, but Toby assured him the depot was just ahead. 10 minutes passed, then a sign reflecting in the headlights. Cypress Bend Supply, 1 mile. Relief sparked in Red's chest. Suddenly, that trailing vehicle reappeared behind them, lights blazing. It shot forward as if determined to catch them before they reached the depot. The engine's roar echoed. "Hang on!" Red barked. He accelerated down the final stretch. The rig groaned under the strain, but the pavement was a bit smoother here. Toby's knuckles whitened, gripping the dashboard. As they rounded the last bend, a squat building materialized on the roadside. Cypress Bend Supply. Old wooden walls, a single lamp illuminating a gravel lot out front. Red swung the rig into the lot with a wide arc. Gravel spewed from beneath his tires. Behind him, the pursuing car screeched to a stop at the lot's edge. Its headlights drilled into the trailer as though the driver was deciding whether to follow. Then, the car reversed, fishtailed, and roared away into the night. Heart pounding, Red parked near the building. Toby exhaled, body sagging with relief. They jumped out, scanning the dark road. No sign of the vehicle. Inside the supply depot's office, they found a harried clerk still on duty. Toby borrowed the phone, eager to report the suspicious car, but the local deputy's line went to voicemail. The clerk explained that it might be hours before the deputy could check that area. Only a handful of law enforcement folks covered the entire parish. Red insisted Toby stay there for the night, and Toby readily agreed, no intention of trekking back to his stranded pickup alone. As for Red, he still needed to unload supplies early in the morning for a handful of local diners. The clerk offered him a safe parking spot behind the depot. A battered security camera overlooked the yard, hopefully enough to deter trouble. He spent a restless night in his sleeper berth, every rustle of wind or frog croak putting him on edge. His mind replayed the chase, the silent footprints in the swamp, the unknown driver who vanished as quickly as he appeared. Why target them? Was it a local's twisted idea of fun, or something more sinister? Come dawn, Red met the local diner owners, who arrived in pickup trucks to haul their portion of the supplies. Toby decided he would catch a ride back to his own truck with a friend. The men parted ways with grateful handshakes, each shaken by the night's events. Red finished his deliveries by midday and started the trip back north, determined to stick to better-known highways, even if it meant extra hours. He carried with him a new respect for the labyrinthine roads and restless shadows of the Louisiana bayou. In truck-stop cafes up the line, he'd recount his brush with the unknown car that terrorized him in the dark, reminding fellow drivers that sometimes the scariest encounters have nothing to do with supernatural forces, but everything to do with unpredictable and potentially dangerous people lurking where help is scarce. Alicia Reyes never let fear slow her down. As one of the few female truckers at her company, she took pride in handling high-pressure jobs with composure and skill. She had tackled precarious mountain routes and punishing desert highways, forging a reputation as the go-to driver for tough assignments. Yet all that confidence would be tested on a hot August night along a lonely stretch of Interstate 40 in New Mexico. She'd been driving since dawn, hauling electronics from Southern California to Oklahoma City, where a retailer needed urgent restock. Her dispatcher texted repeated reminders about the client's strict timeline. Alicia relished the challenge. She liked to push her limits, so long as it remained safe. By sunset, she was making excellent time, her rig humming steadily across the desert. Heat haze shimmered on the horizon, though the sun's departure brought slight relief. Just past 10 p.m., she found herself on a particularly remote stretch of I-40. Fewer cars dotted the lanes. The nearest sizable town lay more than an hour away. Alicia flicked her high beams occasionally to spot any wildlife that might wander onto the asphalt. The radio drifted between static-laced songs and late-night talk shows. Boredom threatened, so she sipped coffee from a thermos, the bitterness keeping her senses sharp. Suddenly, she spotted hazard lights ahead in the right lane. Easing up on the throttle, Alicia approached with caution. A sedan sat angled on the shoulder, front tire shredded. Its hazard lights blinked weakly in the otherwise empty expanse. A man in his 20s stood by the car, waving frantically. Alicia wasn't naive. She knew that some criminals faked breakdowns to ambush helpful motorists, yet the young man's posture radiated genuine distress. She slowed her rig, rolling down the passenger window. "Need help?" she called. He let out a relieved gasp, explaining that he'd blown a tire and had no spare. His phone was dead. He couldn't call for roadside assistance. Alicia scanned the area. No other vehicles, no open services this late. "I can give you a lift to the next truck stop," she said. "It's about 50 miles east. You can call a tow from there." Grateful, He climbed in, introducing himself as Nate. He wore a dusty t-shirt and looked like a college kid on a road trip gone wrong. Alicia relaxed slightly. He didn't seem threatening. They chatted for a few minutes about how lucky he was. She'd come along. Barely 10 miles later, Alicia's side mirror reflected glaring headlights racing up behind them. Surprised, she checked the speedometer. She was already at the limit. The car behind roared right up to her trailer doors, hugging the lane line. Then it veered left, accelerating to pass. As it drew parallel to her cab, she caught sight of a black SUV with tinted windows, no front license plate. Nate, glancing over, muttered, "That's weird," as the SUV lingered beside them for several seconds before finally zooming ahead. Alicia shrugged it off. Some folks just drive like idiots. They continued east, the SUV soon out of sight. Another half-hour passed in relative peace. Nate dozed off, and Alicia let her mind drift to the warm bed waiting in Oklahoma City, once she'd delivered this load by tomorrow afternoon. Then the CB radio crackled. Alicia perked up. Someone was broadcasting on an open channel. "Hey, there, westbound rig," a voice said, static-laced. "You got a minute?" Alicia frowned. She was eastbound, not westbound. Maybe the person had made a mistake. "Still," she responded. "This is eastbound, copy." Silence. Then the voice returned, more insistent. "Eastbound? That you with a silver reefer trailer? Pulled over for a stranded car?" Alarm skittered up her spine. They had described her rig perfectly. "Who's asking?" she replied, trying to keep her tone neutral. A pause, then. "Just a concerned driver, letting you know you might want to watch your back." The line fell silent. Alicia tried to get more info. No response. Nate stirred awake, sensing her unease. "What's up?" he asked. She hesitated, uncertain how to explain. "Somebody on the CB gave me a cryptic warning." Moments later, headlights appeared in her mirror again. It was the black SUV creeping closer. Her pulse quickened. The road remained deserted. She wondered if this was the same person who'd spoken on the radio, or someone else entirely. The SUV matched her speed, refusing to pass. She tried to ignore it, focusing on the empty interstate ahead. Then the SUV's lights flashed bright, high beams glaring. Nate glanced over his shoulder. "That can't be good. Maybe slow down. Let them go around." Alicia eased off the accelerator, dropping 5 miles per hour. The SUV slowed too, staying behind her. She tapped the brakes gently. No reaction from the SUV. Frustrated, Alicia signaled and changed to the right lane, giving the SUV the left lane to pass. Instead, it slid behind her rig into the right lane as well, keeping the same distance. A tense minute passed, both vehicles traveling. Well under the speed limit, Alicia's mind raced with possible scenarios. A carjacking attempt? Cargo thieves? Road rage? She tested her phone signal, barely a bar and no data. Calling 911 would be iffy at best in this dead zone. Suddenly, the SUV swerved left and accelerated, pulling alongside Alicia's cab. The passenger window rolled down, but it was too dark to see inside. Then came a single flash from within, almost like a camera's flash, but it could have been a phone. Alicia's instincts screamed danger. She gripped the wheel tighter. "Hold on," she told Nate. The SUV shot forward, slipping back into the right lane ahead of them. It slowed drastically, forcing Alicia to brake hard to avoid rear-ending it. "What the hell?" she exclaimed. She flicked her hazard lights, partially from anger, partially to warn any non-existent traffic behind her. The SUV quickly switched lanes again, as if playing a twisted game. They repeated this dance, speeding up, slowing down, swerving, making it impossible for Alicia to pass safely. Nate clenched the seat. "What do we do?" he hissed, voice shaking. Alicia considered trying to pull to the shoulder, but at night, on a quiet interstate, that offered no guarantee of safety. Instead, she spotted an exit sign for a rest area 3 miles ahead. If she could just reach it, maybe there'd be witnesses or at least a payphone. She pressed the pedal, the rig's engine rumbling, determined to outlast this harassment. The SUV seemed to realize her plan. It straddled lanes, blocking her from the exit ramp as they approached. Heart pounding, Alicia signaled anyway, hoping to fake a lane change. At the last second, she jerked the wheel, maneuvering the rig around the SUV's left side in a surge of diesel power. The SUV blared its horn, but she managed to slip onto the exit ramp. Gravel pelted the undercarriage, and the trailer swayed. She fought for control, praying she wouldn't flip. They emerged into a dimly lit rest area, nearly empty except for a single parked sedan and an old RV. Alicia pulled up near the lit vending machines. Nate jumped down from the cab, scanning for any official presence. The SUV soared past the rest area on the interstate, horn blaring in frustration. Alicia exhaled, relief flooding her. She parked near a street lamp, adrenaline leaving her shaky. "We're calling the police," she said. The phone signal was slightly better here, enough to place an urgent call. Within 15 minutes, a state trooper arrived. Alicia explained the bizarre chase, describing the SUV's make and behavior. The trooper took notes, apologized that such incidents can happen in isolated stretches. Probably a group of troublemakers who get their kicks harassing lone drivers, he theorized. Nate got in touch with a friend who promised to retrieve his car in the morning. Alicia lingered until she felt safe enough to continue. The trooper offered a brief escort back onto the highway, patrolling behind her for a few miles. The rest of Alicia's journey that night was quieter, though the sense of vulnerability hung thick in the air. By dawn, she rolled into a larger truck stop, exhausted but unharmed. Nate thanked her for the ride before catching a bus back west. Alicia thought about how quickly a normal run could devolve into a midnight standoff with an unknown aggressor. Later, she would warn other drivers on the CB, watch for suspicious SUVs on lonely freeways. It's not ghosts or legendary monsters that menace the highways. Sometimes it's just real people, dangerously bored or malevolent, turning the open road into their own twisted playground. Shauna Winters had plenty of experience driving rigs through snowy mountain routes. Raised in Idaho, she'd learned early on how to handle icy roads and treacherous switchbacks. But even she felt a twinge of unease when her dispatcher assigned her to deliver a load of medical supplies over Blackfeather Pass in northwestern Montana, an area notorious for sudden blizzards, narrow lanes, and minimal guardrails. On top of that, a winter storm warning loomed. Still, Shauna was confident she could manage. She'd done so many times before, right? She left Missoula early, aiming to cross the pass before the bulk of the storm hit. The first half of the drive was straightforward. Rolling hills dusted with fresh snow, the interstate salted and well-maintained. As she turned onto the smaller state highway leading to Blackfeather, flurries began drifting across her windshield. The air temperature dropped, turning her breath into fog whenever she cracked the window. At the base of the pass, she paused at a rustic cafe to top off her thermos with coffee. An older man behind the counter eyed her rig. "Headed over Blackfeather?" She nodded. He shook his head. "Storm's gonna be nasty. You might want to wait it out." She appreciated the concern, but explained she had a tight schedule. The supplies were for clinics on the other side, and they couldn't afford delay. Within minutes, she was ascending the winding road that snaked through thick pine forests. Her rig wore chains on the drive tires, metal clinking against the ice. Slowly, steadily, she gained elevation. Visibility worsened, swirling flakes dancing in her headlights. The radio forecast turned grim. Blizzard conditions possible by late afternoon. Travel discouraged. Tunnels of white confronted her. The pines on either side weighed down with snow. She maintained a crawl of 25 minutes, scanning for black ice. Occasionally, she glimpsed a lone pickup, or SUV, going the opposite direction, each time receiving a concerned wave or a flashing of lights. Despite the caution, her progress felt smooth. Until she rounded a sharp bend, and found the road blocked by orange cones and a battered sign. Accident ahead. Detour. A narrower side road branched to the left, leading deeper into the forest. Shauna sighed. There was no turning her 18-wheeler around on this grade, so she followed the makeshift detour, trusting that local authorities had set it up properly. The path was even more precarious, plowed irregularly, the snow thick in places. Her headlights caught glimpses of tire tracks from earlier vehicles, though they were quickly filling with fresh powder. After a mile, she saw a cluster of flashing hazard lights up ahead. 2 cars sat angled off to the side, one with a crumpled fender. A man and woman waved at her desperately. Rolling down the window, Shauna called, "Everyone okay?" They explained they'd skidded into each other on the slick turn. No serious injuries, but no cell signal to call for help. Shauna considered the time. The storm was intensifying. Thick flakes pounded her windshield. But leaving them there felt wrong. She offered them a lift to the next town, or at least to a spot with reception. They gratefully agreed, hastily grabbing personal items. Soon, the pair, introducing themselves as Carol and Jonas, were nestled in her cab's passenger seat, their breath puffing from the cold. Shauna managed a shaky U-turn on the wide enough stretch of road, planning to head back to the main route. But as she reversed, her rear tires spun. "Damn!" she hissed under her breath. The trailer's weight pressed into the snow, creating a slick patch. She tried rocking the truck gently, no luck. Jonas hopped out to check traction. "We might need to add grit or push from behind," he yelled over the wind. Shauna rummaged for traction mats, stepping out to help, the wind biting her cheeks. After a laborious few minutes, they managed to free the rig, but in the chaos, Carol slipped on ice, banging her knee. The situation was going from bad to worse. Finally pointed in the right direction again, Shauna guided the truck back toward the original highway. Except the snow was coming down so hard, she wasn't entirely sure where the detour had begun. Visibility had dropped to a few yards. She crawled ahead, triple-checking each turn. The radio was no help, static-laden. Jonas tried his phone, no signal. Carol winced, massaging her knee. They continued another mile, tension mounting in the cab. Then the headlights illuminated an unexpected sight. A large SUV, hazard lights flickering, blocking most of the road. Shauna braked carefully, the rig sliding a bit. The SUV's driver door was open, but no one was inside. Her pulse leapt. "What in the world?" Jonas murmured. "Could be the driver stepped out to look for help. This storm is brutal." The swirling snow devoured everything beyond a few feet. Shauna debated honking the horn, but the howling wind probably drowned out most noise. She tried to ease around the SUV, but space was tight, and the roadside angled sharply into a ravine. One false move could topple the trailer. Gritting her teeth, Shauna inched the rig forward, driver's side tires hugging the center line, trailer perilously close to the stranded SUV. Suddenly, Carol shrieked, pointing out the passenger window. A figure stood just off the road, half hidden by swirling snow, watching them. Shauna's heart pounded. She flicked her high beams, trying to see more. The figure retreated behind the trees, invisible in the whiteout. "That was weird," Jonas said, wide-eyed. Shauna managed to clear the SUV with excruciating slowness. She thought about stopping to investigate, but the missing driver could have gone anywhere, and time was critical. She pressed onward, ignoring the knots in her gut. Whoever that was, she reasoned, they might have just been spooked or already had a ride lined up. The bigger danger was the storm. Minutes later, a grinding noise interrupted her thoughts. She realized the side of her trailer had brushed a thick snowbank. She corrected the wheel, but the road was so narrow, the trailer threatened to fishtail. After a tense struggle, she regained control. Carol exhaled shakily, while Jonas checked the side mirror. "We're good. You didn't jackknife, thank God." They pressed on in near whiteout conditions, the truck's wipers barely keeping pace. The slope began to descend, which worried Shauna more. Downhill on ice was a prime cause of runaway rigs. She downshifted, letting engine braking slow them. Carol whimpered in pain. Jonas tried to comfort her, and Shauna felt the weight of responsibility for these two. After what felt like an eternity, a dull glow appeared through the gusts of snow. Lights of a small mountain lodge, perhaps. They inched closer, revealing a wooden sign. Black Feather Lodge. Vacancy. Overjoyed, Shauna maneuvered into a half-plowed parking area. A porch light illuminated a few pickup trucks. They parked near the entrance, wind buffeting the trailer. The lodge's windows cast a welcoming glow onto the snow. Inside, a harried desk clerk greeted them with relief. Several stranded travelers had already arrived, also thwarted by the pass closure or the storm. Shauna helped Carol limp into the lobby, where a local nurse, another stranded traveler, quickly offered first aid. Jonas rushed to phone the local authorities to report the abandoned SUV and the potential occupant. The landline phone was patchy, but they managed to leave messages. As the lodge staff offered them hot drinks, Shauna sat by the fire, shaking from adrenaline and cold. She replayed the night's events, the forced detour, the strange figure in the snow, the near loss of control. On a razor-thin road, had it simply been a series of misfortunes? She might never know. The occupant of that SUV remained a mystery. Regardless, she felt thankful to be indoors, with Carol and Jonas safe. Dawn broke with thick drifts blanketing the roads. Plows would take hours to clear the main highway. The lodge guests banded together, sharing food and updates. By late morning, local rescue crews announced they'd found the SUV's driver, unharmed, in a ranger station some miles away. The missing figure had apparently abandoned the vehicle, seeking help on foot. It was a strange relief to confirm no sinister motives. Just a desperate person in a brutal storm. Eventually the roads reopened, and Shauna continued her haul. The medical supplies reached their destinations a day late, but the recipients were grateful to receive them at all. That night, in a calmer truck stop, Shauna recounted her story to fellow drivers. Some teased her about the phantom in the snow, but she insisted no ghosts had been involved. The only real threats came from nature's fury, mechanical misfortune, and the razor-thin margins of survival on an isolated pass. No supernatural horrors needed, just the reality of a winter storm in the mountains, capable of turning a routine trip into a life-threatening ordeal. Jerome Parsons specialized in urban freight deliveries, weaving his box truck through America's biggest cities. He was no stranger to tight deadlines and narrower streets, from downtown Boston to LA's industrial zones. But Chicago's South Side held a unique reputation for after-dark tensions, especially for out-of-state drivers unfamiliar with the territory. When Jerome landed a contract to deliver fresh produce to multiple grocery stores in that area, he accepted without hesitation. Work was work, and he prided himself on a no-nonsense approach. His route started at 8 p.m. after picking up a load from a suburban distribution center. The plan was to make 4 stops that night, each store wanting restock for the next morning. He'd done runs in Chicago before, but typically on safer schedules, early mornings or mid-afternoon. Doing it at night was new. He brushed aside any nerves, relying on GPS and street smarts. Traffic on I-90 was moderate. City lights shimmered on the horizon. Jerome exited onto a busy thoroughfare, passing rows of brick houses and corner shops. The first stop went smoothly. A smaller family-owned market that stayed open late. He unloaded crates of lettuce, apples, tomatoes. The store owner, grateful, mentioned rising thefts in the neighborhood. Jerome nodded politely, returning to his truck. He wasn't about to let rumors slow him down. Heading to the second store, he turned onto narrower residential streets. Rows of cars parked on both sides forced him to inch along, hazard lights blinking. His GPS mapped a winding path to avoid restricted zones. As he crawled past a dimly lit intersection, he spotted a group of youths gathered near a boarded-up storefront. One of them pointed at the truck. Jerome felt eyes on him as he passed, but they didn't approach. Just a few blocks from the store, a black sedan swerved in front of him and stopped, hazard lights blinking. The driver door opened, revealing a middle-aged man waving frantically for Jerome to halt. Jerome tapped his brakes, warily rolling his window down a crack. "What's the problem?" he asked. "I'm broke down. Engine died," the man explained in an agitated tone. "Could you help give me a jump or something?" Jerome scanned the street. No traffic, minimal lighting, closed shops. Something felt off. "I don't carry jump cables," he said, half-truthfully. He had cables, but the scenario seemed fishy. The man insisted, stepping closer to the truck's door. Before Jerome could respond, a second figure emerged from the sedan's back seat, creeping around the hood. Instinct roared in Jerome's head. He jammed the gear shift into drive and swung the wheel, maneuvering around the sedan. The man shouted, banging on Jerome's door. A fleeting glance in the mirror showed them jumping back into their vehicle as Jerome sped off. Whether it was a genuine breakdown or a setup, he wasn't sticking around to find out. His heart hammered. He navigated 2 more turns, reaching the second store, a larger grocery with a side dock. He reversed into the loading bay, still glancing over his shoulder. Inside, the night manager signed the papers, noticing Jerome's tense posture. "All good?" the manager asked. Jerome mustered a nod, not wanting to linger on the incident. He pressed on to the third store, which was in a more industrial zone. Fewer residential blocks, but darker streets and closed warehouses. The occasional flicker of a street lamp offered minimal comfort. While waiting at a red light, he glimpsed a familiar shape in the side mirror, a black sedan gliding up behind. Him, the same one. He couldn't be certain. Anxiety coiled in his stomach. Green light. Jerome rolled forward, hoping the sedan would turn off somewhere else. It followed. 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4. Suddenly, he caught a left turn that wasn't on his scheduled route, but he took it anyway, weaving between grimy warehouses. The sedan stuck to him like a shadow. Rattled, Jerome dialed 911, but the call dropped. Poor reception in this part of town, or too many thick concrete structures. He debated stopping at a gas station or a lit area, but none were in sight. The chase continued until he spotted a pair of bright headlights up ahead, a patrol car by the look of it, cruising an industrial road. Jerome flashed his headlights, honking, hoping to draw attention. The black sedan braked, then abruptly performed a U-turn, vanishing into the darkness. Relief surged. Jerome slowed near the patrol car, intending to wave them down, but it sped off in the opposite direction, oblivious to his signals. Shaken, Jerome found his third store's dock. The worker there, a tall, tired man, helped unload pallets. Sensing Jerome's nerves, he asked if something was wrong. Jerome explained he might be followed by suspicious individuals. The worker grimaced. "Man, folks around here do all kinds of stunts at night. Maybe you should skip the last stop till morning." But Jerome knew he wouldn't be paid in full if he didn't finish. The final store was on the far side of the district, and he had no intention of losing the contract. "I'll be careful," he said, finishing the paperwork with shaky hands. Back on the road, he triple-checked the route. The area got even less inviting. Rusted fences, graffiti-covered walls, minimal streetlights. He kept his eyes darting between mirrors. Every fleeting pair of headlights made him tense. Finally, he turned onto a street that the GPS claimed would lead to the final stop. Just 2 more blocks. Then he'd be done. Mid-block, a figure stepped off the curb, motioning frantically at him. Jerome's pulse spiked. Another potential trap. He slowed enough to see a woman, face etched with distress, holding a cell phone aloft. She wore a security guard uniform. "Please help," she cried, pointing to a corner convenience store. Its door was smashed, and shadows moved inside. Jerome's sense of self-preservation clashed with empathy. He could call the police from a safer distance. But then again, the woman might be genuine. He inched closer, rolled the window down slightly. What's going on? Someone's robbing the store. My phone's dead, or there's no signal. I can't get help, she said, voice trembling. I'm the building's security, but I'm alone. Jerome's mind whirled. He pictured stepping out and confronting armed robbers, a scenario that rarely ended well. Let me drive a bit further to find better reception. I'll call 911, he offered. The woman waved frantically. They could be gone by then. This is the only store the neighbors have for groceries. These people need help now. Without warning, a crash echoed from inside the store. Jerome couldn't see how many intruders were there. Stay in the truck, he told her, handing over the seat phone charger. Climb up. Maybe we'll get a bar. She did so, tears in her eyes, pressing the phone to the charger. A single bar flickered to life. Jerome kept the engine running, scanning for any sign of the black sedan or other threats. Finally, they connected with 911. The operator took details. Meanwhile, the store's intruders apparently saw the large box truck idling outside, realized something was up. Two figures bolted from the broken entrance, sprinting around the corner. The security guard half lunged out of the cab, but Jerome pulled her back. Let them run. The cops are on their way. Sure enough, sirens approached. Within minutes, the security guard shakily thanked him. Jerome exhaled, adrenaline thrumming. A squad car screeched to a halt, officers fanning out to secure the store. Jerome gave a statement, deciding this was the strangest final delivery of his career. Reached the last grocery stop near midnight, explained his delay to the annoyed manager, and completed unloading. Driving off into the city lights, he felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief. In a single night, he'd encountered a probable scam breakdown, been trailed through industrial streets, and stumbled into a robbery in progress. No ghosts or mythical horrors, just very human threats in the dark corners of a big city. Days later, while fueling up at a more peaceful rest area, Jerome recounted the story to other truckers. Some nodded in recognition, sharing their own cautionary tales of city runs. They all agreed. The real dangers out there come from crime, desperation, or simply wrong place, wrong time. The highways have their share of haunting moments, but the scariest ones seldom involve anything supernatural, just genuine human unpredictability.